welcome to CI/CD course of lectures. Before we talk about what CI/CD are, let's quickly see what makes organizations use CI/CD. As a developer, you developed an application, uploaded the source code to source code repositories such as Git or SVN, and then you built the code on the development or build server. And then you executed your test cases such as unit tests and integration tests. Once successful, you deployed the code to your test or staging environment, where acceptance testing will be done by a testing team or through automated test cases. And once successful, you deploy the code to production. This is a typical development lifecycle, right? Assume you are doing all these build and deploy at different phases manually. Now you have another developer developing new features on your same code and would like to release to production with your release in process of testing. Let's assume we have multiple such developers. You need to make sure the code changes from all the developers must be built together, right? You spend a lot of time in integrating all developers' code, and if there are any issues you face while integrating or after deployment, you would have to sit and resolve those issues as well. This is commonly known as integration hell. To solve this problem, organizations adopt CI/CD tools such as Jenkins, GitLab, etc. CI stands for continuous integration and CD stands for continuous delivery or continuous deployment. Now let's look at the development lifecycle again, but with CI/CD in place. You have multiple developers working and committing code simultaneously to source code repositories such as Git, SVN, etc. and keep releasing changes very frequently. Now you can automate the process of detecting the changes in the repository, pull the code from the repository and then build and perform unit tests and integration tests. This entire process is called as continuous integration. This will be an automated process and keeps running whenever you push changes to your repository. And then you need to deploy the code to the test or staging server and then to the production, right? Automating this entire process starting from the left from the developers till production is called as continuous delivery. Now with continuous delivery, automation is only till your staging environment and completing acceptance testing if it's automated test cases. And then you need to manually deploy to production upon some approvals. And then we have something called as continuous deployment, wherein you can automate entire deployment up till production release. Well, some people use continuous delivery and some use continuous deployment. There is no hard and fast rule which one to prefer. It depends on your needs. If you perform manual acceptance tests and need a manual approval before deploying to prod, you would probably use continuous delivery. Whereas if you have automation testing for acceptance tests and make very frequent releases which needs to be deployed to production quickly, you use continuous deployment. Well, in the case of continuous deployment, if the test cases fail, deployment to production will not happen. So this is how CI/CD tools help development teams to efficiently build and deploy continuous changes and releases to your production applications. As I mentioned before, we use tools such as Jenkins, GitLab, etc. to perform CI/CD. Now in AWS landscape, let's see which services provide CI/CD capabilities. We have a service called as AWS Code Commit for source code repository. Code Commit supports standard Git commands, so you can seamlessly use Code Commit to store, commit and manage your source code. It's just like your private Git repository. And then the service which provides build capabilities is AWS Code Build. And then for deploying the code to staging or production, you can use AWS Code Deploy. Now these are individual services. How can we handle continuous deployment in AWS? Well, there is a service named AWS Code Pipeline, which stitches all these services to achieve continuous deployment on AWS platform. With AWS CI/CD services, we have following benefits compared to the typical CI/CD tools which are in the market such as Jenkins or GitLab, etc. Well, the first one is these are AWS managed services and we as customers no need to manage infrastructure to install and maintain CI/CD tools such as Jenkins, and private source control systems such as Git or SVN, etc. And these services seamlessly integrate with other AWS services such as Elastic Beanstalk, EC2, Lambdas to deploy your codes. And these services also support blue-green deployments seamlessly. Well, blue-green deployment is a strategy wherein we set up a new environment with the latest code, and once all the tests are passed, traffic is shifted to this new deployment. This new environment is called as green. We keep the old environment, which we call as blue, and roll back the traffic back to blue in case of any failures on the green environment. With this blue-green kind of deployment, it helps you transition the new releases seamlessly. And using AWS CI/CD tools, you can perform continuous deployment on AWS Lambda functions.
For more details, check the link in the description. Learn with Whizlabs. Success certified.